Thank you guys for being here today, this morning. We want to start with you telling us your name, where you're from, what you do, and your party preference.
Gino Savi, originally from Chicago. What I do, I'm in the entertainment industry, a little bit of acting, a little bit of stunts, and some producing. Party preference, I'm assuming you mean political, right?
Correct.
Conservative, yes.
Okay.
So my name is Allende Love. I am from North Hollywood, California originally, so I'm actually from here. I moved up north to Lancaster from there. I am an activist in all things that I do. That's what I do. And then I don't necessarily have a political preference. My ideology is that I live for Black people, for the progression of Black people, and whoever it is that is pushing that forward the best is what I favor towards. But my political preference is Black progression. So, yeah.
All right, so have either of you ever been a victim of racism or discrimination? And we'll start with Allende.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think that if you're Black, then you're born as a victim of racism, racial discrimination, being that the way that the country is founded, it's founded upon racist principles, racist rules, and that those things continue to perpetuate to this very day. So I don't think that there's any way to not be victimized by that. It's just a matter of whether or not you can identify in which the ways you are.
Zavi, how about you?
Yes and no. I'll start with the no. I don't agree with the definition of racism, being that we're all one race. We have different ethnicities. I believe in just and unjust. Ultimately, I see good and evil. So, in that sense, no. But in the other sense that I know what we're talking about, yeah. I mean, it's definitely out there. I think everybody has the ability to be racist. If one ethnicity does not have that ability, then God made a mistake. So I happen to be a Christian myself, so we all can do all the same sins. And so how it looked back to even the 80s, 50s, and 60s, a lot different now. So I can recognize it, but I call it something different because we're all one race. So I think words matter big time. So yes and no.
All right, there have been worldwide protests happening against police brutality and social injustice for some years now. At the core of this issue is systemic racism, so we'll begin with that. Do you believe that systemic racism exists in America? And please explain your stance. Zavi, can you answer first?
No problem. No, I don't believe it's systemic racism, no more than I believe in hate speech. I think they're made up terms from the Marxist left that are designed to further divide, conquer minorities. Based on what they have in their own rule book, they mean the Marxist. I do think we have unjust things that happen out there. But again, those definitions, I think people buy into them. And again, just like hate speech, how do you have hate speech when we have a free speech constitution? We have things that protect us as far as defamation and threatening things. But when you have this type of thing to where there's some type of concept of supremacy or hate speech, that means someone has to be the arbiter. Now, that's not a good thing because whoever's in control is going to decide what's right and what's wrong. So we already figured that out a long time ago as far as what's in the Constitution. And if you like it or not, that's up to you. However, with this whole thing of, systemic racism, it would make sense to me to attack the things that are really designed in quote unquote the racist term where they came from. So we've undone a lot of things that are completely racist in nature, from slavery to Jim Crow to voting to you name it. But for some reason, we still are holding on to Planned Parenthood. I mean, for crying out loud, the eugenics queen, Margaret Sanger, she designed it to go ahead and wipe out the black root. And this was a homie of Adolf Hitler, and that's what he used over there in Auschwitz. So I just think, I mean, we can go on with the Great Society Act, which basically incentivized black families to defamily, kick the black man out. I mean, Lyndon B. Johnson's quoted as saying, "I'll have those niggers vote for the DNC for the next 20 years." Apparently, it worked. So there's some big things that we can go ahead and attack, and that are specifically rooted in racism, not from our own conjecture, but from what they say. And the crime bill of '93 and so what, calling super predators that need to heal. I don't appreciate that. And we can see objectively how a bunch of black men went to prison. It was a major spike. So I don't believe in it, but there are some things where, like, you know what, we should probably take care of that.
I don't think that it's a matter of belief as far as systemic racism is concerned, as much as it is the acknowledgement of systemic racism. With most problems that we face, we have to be able to acknowledge them in order to fix them or correct them in any way. So when you look at what it means to be systemically racist, like a lot of the times, the way that society works currently, we have problems with acknowledging racism in general. Like, you know what I'm saying? Earlier, you know what I'm saying, the gentleman to my left, he brought up the fact that I want to use different words because we got to make sure that these things are accurate for what it is, which that is, I absolutely agree with you. But if you think about etymology, you understand that words evolve. So in current tense, this is what this word means. You know what I mean? So when we look at things like racism and systemic racism, we have to understand that even though I've never met somebody that says I'm racist in my life right now, but everybody says that they experience racism, which means that you have to look at what it means to have a system when you're looking at systemic things. Systems are made to produce things in repetition. It has to have a reoccurrence of something over and over again, like our presidency. We have 45 presidents, right? And 44 of them have been white men. That's what's called a reoccurrence of something and the production of a successful system. So even though something can break through that system, that is a result of a successful person, but not a successful system. So what it does is it shows the different reoccurrences of racist systems. And that was just one example, not to say that I can go on all day as far as different examples, but I just want to give you guys one so you know what systemic racism looks like in practice currently. And we'll be going into our next president being another white man, you know what I'm saying? So these are what the systems look like. And a lot of the times we get confused with just thinking that racism or systemic racism is limited to just legislative and not sociologically or not mental or not the mental effects of it or the emotional effects of it. But racism is a system, an embodiment of something that can reproduce a similar result at a high rate, not necessarily at 100%. But I did just want to say in response, if I may, to what you were saying earlier, I think that to say that to not agree with something, but then to list a list of examples of that thing seems very confusing to me. So I just wanted to ask if you can clear that up for me for the sake of my understanding going forward, because I feel like the examples you gave only further validated the existence of racism or systemic racism, but then you said that you don't agree with it.
No, that makes sense. My point being that the things that have been racist in nature, that would be considered the most racist, we seem to keep them around. And by we, I mean a lot of black folks are in favor of Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Which I don't understand. If we're so against systemic racism, why would we not be going after the thing that has literally murdered more of us than have been born? Apparently, we meaning society, we don't even agree what the term of racism is. So we sure in the hell can't agree what systemic racism is. And yes, words do evolve, but concepts don't. Concepts are always concepts. So what you might say is racism, I look at it, I'm like, no, that's just someone being an a-hole, you know? And so in that case, we might both be right, but saying 645 quarter till. It's like, oh, okay, well. So that I think is the bigger problem. Legislatively, look, you cannot legislate love. It's never gonna happen, all right? So what outside of a proper relationship with God can really remedy what we are calling racism?
You asking me?
Yeah, just up in there. Just kind of. I mean, you can answer if you want to, but I hope I answered what you asked me.
Okay.
On the topic of police brutality and calls to defund the police, there are arguments that law enforcement agencies need more funding for better training and equipment. Others say that some police need to be replaced by social workers, mental health professionals, therapists, and so on. Ayende, you can start with what your opinion is on that.
Okay. So as far as defunding the police is concerned, so a lot of the times the issue that people have as far as defunding the police is that they look at it as being like, we want to increase crime because most people are looking at the law enforcement as a preventative measure for crime, not understanding that law enforcement is a response to crime, not a preventative measure. Preventative measures come from access to resources, access to education, and access to wealth. So money, education, resources will prevent bad things from happening. Because what I tell a lot of people is everyone is a thief. Everyone is a murderer. The only difference is your circumstances.
I agree.
So if you've never had to be in a position where you had to steal something, consider yourself blessed. Consider yourself, you know what I'm saying, be happy for what you have. And if we don't provide these resources for these communities that are most economically disfranchised, that are given the least bit as far as education is concerned, then we're expecting for these things to perpetuate. Now, if you put police inside of communities, they're going to find things that are in breach of whatever it is that their rules tell them to look for. You know what I'm saying? So bringing more police inside of a community will only increase the amount of infractions that a community has. It will never decrease it. Their presence can only, due to the fact of what they are, increase it. So what we're saying is because there's only so much money, take some of that money away and put it towards preventative measures. And then if you increase the amount of resources that these communities have, it will decrease the amount of things that have negative effects on that community. That's what the aspect of defunding the police. So it actually helps the police department. It doesn't hurt them.
I agree with the first part of what you said, and I've said that in a lot of different ways. We're all we all have the potential to do some bad things, and if you don't have good things available, you're probably going to slip into that. I do agree with that, and I also want to agree with the whole idea of bad policing. There's definitely bad. I've been a part of it, as I've also been a part of good policing. I think reform is the answer, and so which kind of just goes along with what my man's saying over here, because I think you might have some bad operations out there that are trying to get a quota. I agree. I think there's definitely a difference between bad and good. Not all are bad, not all are bad, and all are good. So I do agree with that. However, changing it to be more effective is one thing, and so we can go towards not just so much the policing, but the DAs of those districts. They are making a lot of the decisions as far as what they need for their numbers. And so the police, they're just like, all right, I'm just doing my job, and so I'm just, but then you also have the potential for corruption, which might go outside of that. So they're going to get the training, which is going to come from the governor to the mayor, blah, 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 blah. And so the police are the last ones because they're enforcers. It's like, dude, what's wrong? I'm just doing the thing I was told to do. And then you do have bad players. The big answer that I think, regardless of the police, is the family. I say it over and over and over, the family, the family, the family. Not all of us have the best mom or dad, but it's just, I compare it to playing, football. If you got a quarterback who's trying to be a center, we got a problem. At least play your position. And so how you're raised is going to determine how you behave. Sorry.
Okay. I guess my concern is, are you saying that all quote unquote bad policing, as you used it, is a result of someone doing something wrong? Because if you're saying that parenting is a solution, what you're saying is that bad policing can only occur if someone does something wrong, right?
Bad policing is acting outside of what your protocol is, and that's being a bad player. And so as far as reform, that is more of an operational thing, is in terms of this is what we're doing. But if you're going left when you're told to go right, it's like, why are you doing that? Then that would be considered a corrupt thing. As far as your family, yeah, your family is the best, in my opinion, the most preventative thing you can do. And so I'll keep on saying throughout the debate, it all comes back to having the mom and the dad in the house doing their thing. And we're far from perfect, but you have a far better chance of being successful on the street as well.
Right. Now, I'm not sure if I'm wrong or not, but it sounded like you just reiterated the same thing, but used different language to do so. But the question is, do you believe that so let's say there's been a bunch of instances of police brutality that has taken place. Now, whether or not you agree with it or not, just you know what I'm saying? But because that has taken place, are you saying that every instance that takes place was because someone did something wrong that could have been fixed by their parenting?
No, I'm saying that it's your best chances. And so there's always going to be bad things that happen. That's never going to go away.
Right.
So the best way, in my opinion, is to go ahead and make sure that you're raised the right way. The other problem that we have right now is we're not even agreeing what is considered good and bad policing. I mean, this is a slippery slope because it kind of gets into a false sense of entitlement. We can look at my man in Wisconsin that got shot 7 times. A lot of us think, yeah.
Who are you speaking of specifically?
I forget his name. Is that
Jacob
Blake? Thank you, Jacob Blake. A lot of us think that, yeah, you got shot 7 times. Okay, and others say, well, how did, that's not right, you got shot 7 times. And it's just like, we can't even agree on that. Because I personally think if you're gonna go ahead and get the cops called on you for raping a woman, you got a warrant out for your arrest, you got a knife in your hand, you got a baby in the back seat, you got tased 2 times, what do you expect? And so it's just like, it goes both ways. Cops got to have accountability, and we got to have accountability. If we're really going to teach our children to resist arrest, then we're writing our own death warrant. And it's just like, how do you come out of that? I've been in Chicago. They do have, unfortunately, a little bit rougher type of cops, and I've encountered some ones who are not nice guys, but I comply and I don't die.
Did you?
What?
You just Dr. Seuss that?
I was thinking Sharpton.
That was okay for sure.
Jesse Jackson.
Bruh, man, okay.
I know you took your glasses off.
Man.
You want to respond?
Okay, let's do this.
I want your response because I can see how bad you want to. I want to give you 30 seconds till we got to move on to the next question.
Man, there's so much you just said. I just want to give you some examples, man. One about parenting. Philando Castile was killed, right, with his child in the background, right, from complying with police officers. Right. So when you're talking about parenting and you're saying that this is going to be the solution to these things, I comply and I don't die. I'm going to remember that because it rhymed. And I think that if someone can comply with officers in front of their children, being an example that you're saying that they should be and still be killed, what then becomes of your solution?
Well, I just said there's always going to be bad things that happen, but if we're going to go ahead and call left, right, and right, left, we got a problem. If we're really going to raise our kids, regardless of the bad things that happen, to go ahead and resist, then it's going to come back to us.
If I can specify really quick, the question was around the bad things that happen. So to use it's always going to be bad things that happen, to me is just jumping over the question to begin with. Because the problem is the bad things. So if you're talking about So what are you addressing? If you're just going to say, well, bad things are going to happen, are you just going to say that this doesn't matter? Or because you use an example?
No, not at all. We're talking. So we're on Earth. We're not in paradise. It's only going to get so good here. We all have free will.
Right.
So the best way to lessen things getting really bad is to take responsibility of our own things. Now, you're always going to have gangsters. You're always going to have bullies out there.
Right.
They're going to do what they're going to do. It's never been fixed. But here's what we can do to lessen that. And so when people do bad things, like what you're talking about, yeah, we go ahead and we take care of that. But since the beginning until when it's all going to be, burned up in flames, there's still going to be bad players. And I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing. And family it's not the end all be all, but it helps your chances as far as how you're raised. And what happened, it's like, yeah, it sucks. But I'm not going to tell my kid, if you don't feel like you should be arrested, you should resist. That's bad on me.
It has been confirmed that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has multiple gangs within its department, most notably a gang titled the Executioners. It's said that they have initiations that require officers to be violent toward community members, and you can earn parts of the tattoo by killing people. What are your thoughts on this, and does it impact the way you feel about law enforcement and the community's ability to trust the police? And Zavi, you can start.
Something like that. It doesn't change my opinion. Where there is bad, it needs to be rooted out. And so I'm not so naive to think that there are not people out there that have some type of animus towards certain individuals for certain reasons. However, I'm not going to handicap myself by thinking that the devil is everywhere. It's impossible. He can be some places, but he can't be everywhere. I don't mean to sound dogmatic or anything, but that's just how I see things. So where there's bad, you root it out, and it's going to be there. I'm saying yes, it's going to be there. There are certain players, and when you identify it, you nab it in the bud. But I think it's far more damaging to think that the man's out to get me all the time, and that puts a unnecessary chip on one's shoulder and get you into some situations that you don't need to be because you're a bit apprehensive. So.
Okay, Allende, your opinion on sheriff gangs, LA sheriff gangs, and the community's ability to trust the police?
I think if you are a black person, you should not trust the police. What you should do is create systems that are alternative to policing. I don't think that you should allow people to spit on you over and over and over again. And as of right now, and historically, the policing is a direct result of slave patrolling. Is a direct result of black people and this country's apprehensiveness against us. So to sit here and to think that same system is also going to serve and protect you when statistically it shows to be the exact opposite of things, at some point you have to be able to establish a different independent form, and also methods to be able to protect that form, because we tried to do it with the Black Panthers before, and it became a system that only birthed more policing, because the SWAT team now exists because of that system being created. So what we need to do is to be able to take position within the current system in order to make sure that we have what I call bad police officers inside of that system, because to be good means that you abide by a specific rule set, and that specific rule set has been set up against a particular community, and it's been working itself that way. So good cops are the ones that help that system to work to the efficiency that it's been working in, and we need more bad cops. We need more cops that are willing to go against that system in order to make it work. I'm not looking for any more good cops. I'm good with that. So I think that no, it doesn't change the way that I feel about law enforcement, because I acknowledge what they were from the beginning. So this is just a result of what I've always known them to be.
Sally, yeah.
There within the answer is that's where we're at. That's where we're at right now in society. And a lot might even say that where we're at is definitely been prophesied thousands of years ago. Man will decide what's right in his own mind. So it's happening where people say, no, this is right, this is wrong, and another person will say, no, that's wrong. And our overall relationship from God is as a people, not just black people, but people in general, it's so messed up that we literally can look at the same thing and say, that's right. Other one says, that's wrong. For all cops to be considered bad, that's a part of the problem. And so it's just like, why would it be any different for any other ethnicity to say, those black people, they're the problem? Because statistically, they create most of the crime, violent crime. They're the problem. Not specific type of black people, but there's only 13% of them, and they make over 50% of violent crime. And so it's just like, that's wrong. That's wrong. So I do understand what he's saying. I just disagree with it. I mean, we're not going to change each other's mind. And the whole thing of what we're doing right now is to understand, okay, man, damn, that's pretty deep. You think that? And so how do we provide a solution more than trying to change someone's mind? So.
All right. So what about black on black crime? That's something that's constantly brought up in conversations surrounding police brutality. Is black on black crime a real issue, and can it be used as a way to counter the existence of police brutality? Allende, we'll start with you.
The terms black on black crime typically originates based upon geographic location. So black people tend to live around black people, which means that black people are typically going to hurt black people more than other races. White people are typically going to hit white people more than other races. The difference is the criminalization of communities are different. So this is the reason why you hear statistics like what he just said. Historically, if you look at the way that laws are created, and I always tell people to go back and cross-reference with the Virginia slave codes. If you look at the way that our communities were policed, the laws were literally formulated to criminalize specific communities. And this is the reason why you have these numbers popping up. Oh, well, you're 13% of the population. Well, you're the targeted 13% of the population. So if I have, okay, cool, man, if you set water at the edge of your table on the right side, on the back corner, then that's against the law. Then, okay, well, you just violated something, right? So then I document this thing. I document the thing that he's violated now. And now he's looked at as okay, well, you have a criminal. Criminal crime, by definition, is literally just anything that is against whatever law is. But if your law is formulated around what is most likely to be perpetuated by one specific community, then those numbers are going to be fluctuated whenever you touch that community. So, like, just to your point, because I just want to make sure that it's important that people understand this. Like, going forward, people have to stop criminalizing black people and stop allowing this narrative to be perpetuated. There's systems in place. This is the reason why, and we can't sit here and say right or wrong. I'm not a judge of right or wrong. Neither are you. No one is. It's too subjective as a person. You have a right hand and a left hand, just like me, and their right hand and left hand is in a different position than ours is right now. It's the exact opposite. Right or wrong is the same way. So we need to measure by progression. Progression will have a goal. So if this is my goal and I'm here, every single time I get closer to this, I know I've made progression. You know what I'm saying? I can't measure right or wrong, but I can measure progression. So I'm not a person for all that. But what I do need to say in response to that is a criminalization of a community is going to fluctuate any number, and that has to be accounted for. We can't just recklessly say something like that because it's going to misrepresent an entire community.
Zombie has a chance to respond.
You say we can't judge right or wrong?
Yes.
So, on the basis of what?
Okay, I think you're thinking I'm saying we can judge right or wrong. I said we can't.
Yeah.
So there is no basis of something when I said that you can't judge right or wrong.
So
if I said we can judge right or wrong, and then you say it on the basis of what, I would say, okay, cool. On the basis of
we can't do it, right?
Right. I'm saying no one is a judge of right or wrong.
Okay, but you just made a judgment.
What judgment did I make?
You said that we can't do something. You judge that we can't judge something. So it's a self-defeating statement.
No, that's not a.
So
okay,
I mean,
so where is it? Okay, so a judgment,
yeah,
and a determination,
right,
is two different things, correct?
I'm agreeing with you, but you're saying you're saying that we cannot judge. So you have already judged that you can't judge. It's a self-defeating statement.
No, I did not judge that we cannot judge. Now, a judgment is a determination,
Right.
and a judgment is two different things, right?
Okay.
So a judge is in order to say whether or not something is in accordance to a law, right? Which means that there is already something there. If you get a judge, if you have a job of a judge,
Right.
your job is to measure how much something is in accordance to a law, right? But the determination is made by who? The prosecutor, correct?
I totally agree with what you're saying, but when I'm going a step further, and I'm saying you're being the moral arbiter right now, saying that there is no such thing as a judgment. That is a judgment, and so everybody knows that it's wrong to go ahead and rape somebody. Everybody knows it's wrong to murder somebody. That is a judgment. I mean, if we can't make judgments, we're in trouble. We are definitely in trouble, and that goes back to what I was talking about before. It's a lack of self accountability. We have to judge and judge righteously. If people people get offended all the time because somebody steals something from them, they steal their sex from them, they steal their car, they steal their life. Everybody knows that we have to judge, and I say that yes, we should judge, and we should judge more righteously. Okay.
Transitioning into Black Lives Matter organization and movement. Zavi, we'll start with you for the first Black Lives Matter question.
Okay.
Do you support the Black Lives Matter movement and or organization?
Okay. No, I don't. I don't support either. Are you also asking me if they're separate or if it's the same thing, or is?
Well, there's a movement.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's the actual organization.
Okay, I got you.
That birthed the movement.
Yeah, I got you.
But some people separate them.
Oh,
so some
okay.
people have the opinion, I don't support the organization,
Right.
but I support the movement, and vice versa.
Oh, no, okay, I got you. Okay. No, I don't support either. Why wouldn't Black Lives matter? Why wouldn't they matter? I mean, where did this even come from? I understand that this comes back to police brutality as far as why it was created, but none of that money goes to police brutality. It goes to the DNC. It's a political siphon. The two biggest reasons why I don't support it is the founders are devout Marxist. You kidding me? No way. I'm a capitalist. I'm a patriot. With that alone, and secondly, within the charter, that was one of the points, the bullet points that was deleted a couple weeks ago, was to disrupt the patriarchy or the conventional family. So this is continuing the work of the Great Society Act, which is removing the black man, the black father, from the family. With that alone, there's no way in good conscience that I'm able to go ahead and support that. And so we're looking at all of these acts that have been happening, and it's justified. So we can go ahead and we can burn down buildings, we can go ahead and even murder people, all because, well, it's built up for so long. Well, I totally disagree with that. If you're going to tell somebody to go ahead and you need to pay reparations for something that you didn't do, but maybe your great-great-grandfather did it, you need to pay reparations. And that's so much of what's being pushed upon people. And here's what really blows me away. Quite a few members of a percentage of Black Lives Matter are white people. So I have a white person telling me how to be black. That is the craziest thing ever. If I don't agree with you, there's something wrong with me. I'm not black enough. And so somehow, you as a white person, you're trying to, I mean, that would be a good example of what's considered racist. So, hell to the no, I don't.
Okay. As far as the organization is concerned, I will say people should do their research and come to whatever conclusion they feel is necessary for that. You want to repeat that?
No, just speak up a little bit.
Okay, got you. And then as far as, I did want to clear up something. As far as the organization is concerned, it is actually a requirement to be black to be inside of that organization, just so you know. So the movement is different though. It is different because there's what's called allies, right? So when you recognize that a particular society does not treat all people equal, and some people may have more privilege inside of a certain area, then you can then begin to leverage that privilege in order to protect other groups of people. And that's what you see other white people doing in these things. Now, that's not to say that all white people do this thing. It's not to say that all white people favor this side or favor that side, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just to say that, just to clear up that particular portion of it. I think that I'm immensely grateful for this movement. You know what I mean? Like, it put conversation in the forefront of people that would never have had it. It allowed progression to be made. We had the biggest social awareness climate that has ever existed in history because of this movement. So I'm super, super grateful because of it. And whether or not people agree or disagree, I think that it all works together. You know what I'm saying? As long as the conversation continues to go forward, as long as like there's somebody to sit down and say, oh, they're Marxists and they burn buildings down and blah, 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 then the conversation is going to continue. So to me, I love everybody who continues to push the conversation, no matter what nature they choose to do it in, because it allows the education to go forward. Without the conversation, it becomes nothing. So whether you hate it or you love it, talk about it so you can figure it out and just seek out the education that you need behind it.
I agree with what you just said. Like, I'm all about having conversations. So
yeah,
yeah, good point.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Okay. For many people, you actually touched on this already, the BLM movement is seen as political. For example, if an athlete is seen wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, some say things like, keep politics out of sports. Others say that this is simply a human rights movement. Is the BLM movement political? Ayinde, you start this one.
Yes, I think that everything you do is political because our nation is structured around policy. So everything that you do is going to be political. We just tend to only acknowledge policy, you know what I'm saying, in a particular fashion. So when I tell people the most political thing you can do as Black people right now is to control where you put your money at. It's not voting. You can, I do believe that you should vote, and that's very, very important as well. But the most political thing that you can do for the sake of your progression right now is controlling your money, because you have the largest economic spending power of any other community in the world. You don't make the most, you don't have the most, you spend the most. And you have to understand what you have to your advantage in order so you can use your advantages. So in terms of like people trying to silence Black athletes, they're still Black. And they still have to live as a Black man or as a Black woman when they step off that court, that field, or whatever it is that they're playing on. So to tell somebody to be quiet when your life is in jeopardy, I feel like is what systemic racism looks like in practice currently.
I agree. Especially when it comes to the whole money aspect. Do I think it's political? Yeah, I think it's completely political. In terms of what you mentioned earlier about you don't make the most, but you spend the most. Were you referring to just Black folks in general here?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree. I don't agree with a lot of I don't agree with a lot of the premises that or points that Farrakhan made or Malcolm X made. But if someone's right, they're right. And so what they've said, what they have said and say is it's spend your money where you want it. Don't just spend money to somebody who you believe is trying to really take you down. And I'd say that about anybody. Money definitely is power, and so like the old saying goes, follow the money. So that's ultimately going to determine how far you're going to go in a particular organization as far as if you have the money. So yeah, I'm all about, this kind of goes into, I guess my overall ideology is I want a small government. I don't want a big government. I think communities should be able to have more power within themselves, and then that should be able to spread to other communities as well. I'm not a segregationist, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I want more power for the individual. And so with that being said, in terms of taking a knee or whatever. Okay, I understand why some might want to take a knee. I get that. As you probably imagine, I'm for standing up, because it goes back to me not being in the military, but it's giving respect to those who have died. Where someone says, well, this is a thing that I've been going through, this, that, and the other, and I'm taking a knee because of that. And it's like, all right, but here are the rules that we have here. You can still be an activist, just you can't do that in this place of service where you work at. So sorry about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Do you have a response?
Yeah. I would just say, man, for somebody to tell you how to protest something, to me is the exact is the suppression of the voice to begin with. You know what I'm saying? You cannot tell me that you should only protest in a way that makes you comfortable, because it defeats the purpose of the protest.
Why have uniforms?
I'm sorry?
Why have uniforms?
I don't understand how that relates to the question, but if you want to clear that up for me.
Why have a dress code?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
When you go to work, you have to wear a uniform. You might have a dress code because that's what they have at your job. That's one of the requirements.
Okay.
So with that being said, there are certain things that are just like you can do whatever you want, but here you have to wear a certain thing. And certain things are off topic. Just like a lot of places, you can't even talk about politics in the office because it becomes a hairy situation. So. Right. So how's that taking away your right as far as what you cannot do when you're not at your job or wear what you want to wear?
Right. I don't even think that's what I was saying at all. So I understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is underneath the confines of certain things, you shouldn't do something, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the point of why protests are important. It's because when those confines don't permit for my livelihood to exist inside of a social structure, that means that something has to go against that structure in order to change it. So people have to see a displayed change for them to be able to comprehensively understand what's happening. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have to go against whatever that rule structure is in order to produce a new one. So if only thing I'm able to do is the things that you permitted me to do, then there will be no change.
So, but I understand that you don't agree with the comparison that I just made, but that is going to set up a slippery slope, because that means it's going to be something to where, well, now this group, they want to go ahead and protest this and protest that. Whoa. We're here to make burgers. We're here to play football. You guys can do that, but right here, there's a certain type of thing that we're doing. We're not going to dock your pay. We're not going to fire you because you do that outside. But we're not doing that here, and you're not going to make somebody else do it either. And so now it's completely permeated to all of these professional sports, and now it's the whole going woke, going broke thing. People don't want to buy this. They don't want to have it shoved in their throat. So people are walking away from it.
Yeah. Can I say a 20-second response to that? A 10-second response to that? Okay, so this is the real important part. So earlier when I was talking about the difference between right and wrong and progression, this is the perfect example to measure it in. So just like the example that you gave, you said, okay, well, this is this. There's a rule structure not to or not to go against, right? But right now, if you watch the NBA right now, it's printed on the back of everybody's jersey, right? Mm-hmm. If you watch,
you're forcing that upon the people. If you're forcing your message upon me,
regardless.
So how is that right?
Regardless, however you want to feel about it, I'll be more than happy to answer your question as long as I can finish my statement.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Fantastic. So, like, just like how you said, oh, we're not going to dock your pay as long as this thing goes, right? Nobody's pay was docked. Right. Yet the message was able to go much further than Kaepernick now, right?
Okay, and so because of that...
So that's measurable, right? So that means that one person was able to do it now, and now an entire league is able to do it now, right? And in addition with commercials...
No, they're not able, they're made to do it. They're telling them you have to wear this. If you don't wear this now you can't participate. That's the problem I had.
That's not true, but...
Really?
Really, yeah. That absolutely isn't true.
So with some of the football players in the NFL who have covered up some of the I guess the BLM stickers, they get fined. They actually get fined, and it's just like because they're not wearing part of the uniform. So now now you have politics that are being made a part of the uniform, and so that's the whole point. It's a slippery slope. And so going back to the money thing, people, we're at an all-time. So we've got supposedly this pandemic, which is the biggest pile of crap I've ever heard of in my life, and so people are watching TV at home, and somehow the NBA has the all-time lowest viewership because it goes back to forcing messages, political messages on people's throat. We just want to watch basketball. We want to have this thing. And so I see what you're saying, but you got to follow the money. And the money says, nah, I don't want to be a part of this. So why can't we just play basketball, play football without any politics?
Okay.
Antifa has now become associated with the Black Lives Matter movement and is said to be the root of the violence happening at various protests around the world. Allende, you've been out protesting on multiple occasions.
Right.
Have you seen any evidence of this? And what are your thoughts on Antifa, and how do you feel about their violence being lumped in with BLM movements?
Man, that's a difficult question, because for me, I measure everything, like I said earlier, by progression. So I feel like it's important to distinguish what the purpose of what the movement is, but also I believe that by any means necessary, something needs to be done. So if conversations get pushed forward, I've personally never seen a black person burn a building down. I have personally never seen a black person break windows. I've personally never seen that. Me. One thing I wanted to say as well is that for the sake of what black people are trying to accomplish, I really don't give a damn about a lot of these systems. I give a damn about black people empowering other black people. Typically, the Antifa conversation comes from people I don't give a damn about. Like, you know what I'm saying? In terms, not necessarily the people, but in terms of how they feel about what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how you feel about what black people are doing for black progression, because your whole position is specifically rooted as an opposition. I don't consider myself to have any enemies, because I don't give anybody that type of authority over me. So I feel like enemies I have to internalize, but opposition is just there. So I have to be able to say, okay, cool, well, you're in opposition of me, so my energy is not devoted towards you because it's too valuable. I give my energy to the people that are geared towards my progression. So however you feel about Antifa, I personally do not give a fuck. I personally do not care. Do it. Like, hate them all you want. I care about our progression. And whatever vehicle and means that comes through, I don't care. I'm not a part of Antifa. I don't condone it, but it exists.
Okay. Sabi, your thoughts on Antifa and the Black Lives Matter movement?
They're real. They exist. And I do think that you do have a lot of them that are doing bad things. They're doing the bad things that in certain circumstances that BLM didn't actually do. And so that for me is a concern. Because it's like, well, wait a minute. Why is it that this is a weird thing. I don't want to get off topic. It's a weird thing though, but I'll watch quite a bit of footage of BLM. Might be, burning a building, but a lot of times, it's a white person. It's not so much a black person. It's a white person. It's really strange to me. It's really weird, and so my eyebrows go up. Like how is it that all this footage that I'm seeing just happens to be a white person in the name of BLM? Now, I don't like the ideology of BLM as itself. I don't like it, but I also see other, I'll just say, people who are standing in for them. And how do you know who's who? So Antifa, they get funding. It's a real group, and the problem is, a big problem that we have right now is you really don't know who's who because everyone's wearing masks, and you do have people who do cause red flags, meaning I'm going to act like I'm on your team and say something crazy, so you get bad press. So many wars have been started that way. There's definitely something there. It's going on all the time, and I think every group should be accountable for its own group. So if someone says something out of pocket or does something out of pocket, whoever is the leader or the member say, hey, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. Who is this guy anyways? Not you. Who is this guy anyways? And then it got back to back. But that's always going to be around. You're always going to have bad players. So that is a major concern. And if someone's doing something bad in the name of this group, but really that's not what they do, then call it out.
Okay.
Any rebuttal on that?
No.
Okay, we're gonna move to the two presidential candidates now. So we'll start with Joe Biden. He was a supporter of the 1994 crime bill, which was responsible for disproportionately targeting African Americans by increasing sentences and funding more prison construction initiatives. But it also had a provision that allowed for the Justice Department to investigate law enforcement agencies for patterns of discrimination, which is exactly what happened. Which is exactly what it did with the Ferguson Police Department after the killing of Michael Brown. Okay, Allende, given Biden's sponsorship of this bill, what are your thoughts on him potentially becoming our president? Should this be forgiven?
No. I don't particularly like Joe Biden. Like, I don't particularly like either of the primaries. I don't believe that Joe Biden is the answer for black people. I don't believe that Donald Trump is the answer for black people. I believe that black people are the answer for black people. And that right now, like always, we are forced to choose between like Satan and the devil or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Whatever way you want to position it to be. But I do think it's important to be politically informed behind the issues that they stand behind, in order so that it makes it easier to position the next coming up. So I think right now, regardless of either candidate, right now what we need to be doing is paying attention to who is being positioned to come up next, and how we can condition the climate in order for them to get in office. And I think that Joe Biden will be easier to condition the climate for, not necessarily the policies.
Sabi.
Do I think Biden is the right pick?
What are your thoughts on him potentially becoming our president, and should this be forgiven? Him sponsoring the 1994 crime bill.
Well, I think everything should be forgiven as long as that person is asking for forgiveness, but he's not. And so, I mean, there's so much there with him. I mean, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. I wish it was an SNL sketch, but it's not. He has a long list of things that he's said that he's never really taken back, and it just shows a certain character. And the guy's been in office for 45 years, and I don't see any good fruits for 45 years. So I'm going to look, even when some people might say something out of turn, out of pocket, I shouldn't have said that, but what have they actually done? And so I don't like the things that he's done politically, and he is a placeholder. The man is not going to be president. He's going to be removed. And the guy is bought out by China. And so we're like very close to being as I know I'm gonna sound like a conspiracy brother, being a socialist country. All of our debt is a lot of our debt is bought up by China, from entertainment to academia to sports. It's not a matter of if, it's going on right now. And so Biden's a scary dude. I mean, I'm not making fun of him. He's not all there right now. That's scary. And so he doesn't know where he's at. So that's not somebody that I could ever, get behind. And the things that he's talking about too, as far as, we're going to go ahead and have a nation mandate for masks. It's like it's a guy who's talking about taking away freedoms. And some of the past things he said about just minorities in general and the actions that he's followed, he's a scary dude. He's a scary dude.
All right, Allende, Zadi brought up how Biden stated that if you're not voting for him, you're not black. How did you feel about that?
I felt like that was some real clown shit to say. I think that it's a statement to how the political climate is around Black people. And for him, it wasn't necessarily that I would do some great shit for Black people as much as it is that Trump has done so many bad things for Black people that I understand that I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is point out that he's not for you. So if you Black, pick me. Like, it's not necessarily something that's definitive for Black people. And I think that it's an insult to Black people's intelligence for you to be able to say something like that and believe that that's a good enough reason.
All right. We're moving on to Donald Trump now.
All right.
All right. As you both are well aware, Donald Trump has been at the center of many controversies and scandals, from election rigging to his response to COVID pandemic. But in the spotlight now is his alleged complacency when it comes to white supremacist groups that seemingly worship him. Many have called him and his supporters racist. Is Donald Trump racist? You're first.
I would say yes. I think that I don't think that he's an overt racist. Like, I'm just gonna go out there and say some racist shit, though he's just gone out there and said some racist shit. So I think that, but I think that the way that we determine what racism is what makes this like whole thing very difficult. Because as I stated earlier, is that people don't understand that racism is live. So they look at racism based upon like a specific standard: chattel slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and they use these as the gold standards. So this is what racism looks like. And then, so when you hear somebody say sexist statements like grab them by the pussy, or you hear somebody say that all Mexicans are rapists and that they're not, like, you know what I'm saying, or you hear somebody say very insensitive remarks on behalf of their ball players standing up for social injustices, and call them son of a bitches. These are things that perpetuate the state of racism in which we're in, especially when you're the head of the executive branch. You know what I'm saying? So to me, that makes you a racist. That makes you perpetuate the systems in which everyone else, especially when you have the most influential position over a nation, will follow. So to me, that makes you a racist. And by definition, that makes you a racist. So,
Zavi, is Donald Trump racist?
If he is, he's not good at it. I understand what he's saying. We just have different opinions on what racism is. So, like, he's being very sincere about what he says. I believe when he says. I have a different definition of it, and we've already covered it. And so, you know, it's how I see it is, what have you actually done? People say things all the time. When someone says, I love you, what the heck does that mean if they don't show you that they love you? So we have all these things that Trump has done, and yeah, he's an East Coaster. He talks kind of rough sometimes, but for me, you know, with all these historical achievements that he's had, not just for black folks, but for Americans in general, it's a litany of them. It's crazy, from, you know, lowest opportunity or lowest unemployment for black folks, and then we have getting rid of NAFTA. We have opportunity zones. Now we got the Platinum Plan. We have all the historical high funding to historical black colleges. You have all these things that, for me, say I love you. And even before he got into office, you know, he's got, I don't know how many black CEOs he has of his companies. Buying Mar-a-Lago down there in Florida, where he wasn't even allowing any Jews or blacks, and he says, hey, everybody come on in. The guy's been in all these different 100 rap songs, you know, hanging out with, you know, P. Diddy, Snoop, and all of a sudden, he's racist. And so it's just like, again, it's like we're just not going to agree on it because we have different definitions of it. So it's just like, all right, I hear what you're saying, man. I hear you. You know, I get it. We just have different definitions. So.
Andy, do you have a response?
I think that I just want to say that it's really important that people do not use black people to validate whether or not they're racist or not. Slave owners were around a plantation of black people. They had house niggas and they loved them. And they were also in the house and they were treated better, and those house niggas loved their master as well. And if you use that as a basis to measure your racism, then you will be very misguided on what racism looks like or feels like or how it's perpetuated. So I just don't think that those should be valid points to be able to validate whether or not someone is racist. Someone being put inside of a rap song doesn't mean they're not racist. Someone being around black people doesn't mean they're not racist, because the thing is, when we're talking about systemic racism, we're talking about things, we have to understand that hope is used for the production of an efficient system. So if I can always point to Barack Obama and say, just trust the system, do everything right, and you can too be Barack Obama, then that makes a bunch of black people believe that all I have to do is trust this system that's been put in front of me. Even though it's produced 44 white presidents, I can be the second black one. Like, instead of looking for a system that produces 10 black, 10 white, 10 Asian, 10 Indian, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then it'll be like, wow, yeah, I can. I have just as much of a chance as everyone else.
Right.
But they say, they use anomalies to justify the production of a system and say, yeah, this system is racist. It's perfect.
I see what you're saying. I got you. You know, as far as Obama goes, I'm not saying, oh, hey, I got a black friend, I'm not racist. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm talking about is I guess more of what love is. What love is. And so he's shown a lot of love towards the black people with money and whatnot, even before he got in office. And we've had, if there is one, you just let me know. I don't know of any other president, even Obama, that has done more for the black community. There hasn't been one. And so I'm going to look at how someone loves me. I personally don't want someone to treat me any better or any less because of the color of my skin. I just want to have a fair shot, and that's going to be more of a subjective thing, but I don't want any affirmative action. I don't want any special handout. I just want to go ahead and be able to, hey, you're a person, what are your qualifications? Let's go from there. But now you have to compete with the human condition. So.
Okay. Did you have can you rebut? Oh, no, it's over with. Okay. When a Black Lives Matter mural was painted on a street in New York, Donald Trump called it a symbol of hate. Zavi, would you agree with that? Doesn't this contradict his efforts to support the black community?
Yeah, I do agree with what he said, because if you're looking at what the actual charter points are of the group, it's completely divisive, however you want to say it, and it is. I don't see how. A lot of the things that BLM is promoting, it is racist. It is racist. And for me, I don't have a problem of where we're at. You're always going to have bad individuals, but this whole thing about reparations, this is a group that's promoting reparations. This is a group that is promoting demoting the patriarchy, or I guess the black father being the head of the family, which I'm all for. And you're saying to go ahead and take that away. Reparations are a huge part of the injustice. So if we're really going to do the whole reparations thing, then that means we need to do it for everybody. And so, you know, coming from Chicago, Baltimore, New York, you probably know somebody who got shot or got murdered. And maybe that person is that it happened from. I got a cousin who's in prison the rest of his life. and he did some really bad things. So that whole reparations concept means that I could be liable to go ahead and pay for his sins. I don't like that, and so I see that as evil. It comes back to accountability, and it is a very harsh stance that Trump took. A lot of people think, but I don't, and I think it's amazing so much of the wordplay that goes on that more or less, I guess, manipulates people into supporting certain groups. Black Lives Matter. Well, of course, Black Lives Matter. Just like the whole wordplay with, oh, it's pro-choice. It's like pro-choice of what? Pro-choice of you mean pro-choice murdering an unborn baby? Okay, let's not play with these semantics. And I just think just that alone is manipulative in its design. And so yes, going back to what he said, yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the painting a symbol of hate? And does this contradict his said efforts to support the Black community?
I haven't seen the painting, so I don't know what it is.
You know what they did in Hollywood? The
All Black Lives Matter on the street.
Yes.
He said that's a symbol of hate.
Correct.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. That's I do believe if that and let me just be the first to say I'm speaking from a point of ignorance of this particular question because I haven't seen his response or the mural itself. So, but I'm just gonna go based off of the information I was given right now. So to answer it based off of that information, then yes, I believe so. I believe that's a pretty hateful thing to say, and that's a pretty racist thing to say. I think if your focus point on hearing someone saying Black Lives Matter is how can I rebuttal that, then you're probably racist. If you hear somebody say anything promoting social equity of a group, and you think how and your response as a particular person is outside of that group is them gaining equity is going to hurt me, then our society has an issue. And I think that because of that this is more of a sign of society's issue than anything else. Like if Black people gaining equity makes everyone else afraid, then it's a statement as to how our society views Black people.
Do you think that Donald Trump is fully, partially, or not responsible at all for, some of the hate crimes that are being committed against certain segments of people?
Okay, so as far, if I were to say responsible, I would say that these things existed long before Donald Trump came in office. So I wouldn't necessarily say responsible because I believe that is a position that people took long before he came in office or before his popularity came. But what I will say is that he provided a very easy way to validate the way that they felt. And because of that, it makes it, so I guess then that would make it partial. Because of that, he became a symbol to validate the actions behind what they wanted to do. Because when you create a Muslim ban, it makes it much easier for Americans who validate or stand behind their president to feel a certain type of way about Muslims, to call Black athletes sons of bitches, to associate Mexican or Hispanics with rapists. It makes it very easy for other people to want to perpetuate crimes, and it empowers a particular community that fuels themselves off of that type of rhetoric and that type of those principles. To have somebody in the highest office will make them feel a lot more protected in order for them to perpetuate these types of actions.
Zavi?
You can blame anybody for your shortcomings, your failures, and misbehaviors. You can blame anybody you want to, but ultimately you are accountable for your own success. So no, I don't think that he is responsible for that. Last I checked, we're still free individuals. So you can do what you want to do. With some of the things that people throw around sometimes, as far as validating it from the Muslim ban, which is the same ban that Obama had. It wasn't a Muslim ban; it was a terrorist ban. As far as countries that have not some that have quite a bit of animus towards us, and have made it very, very clear that they don't like us. We didn't have a problem when Obama was doing this, but now we have a problem when when Trump goes ahead and enforces the same thing, or in terms of choosing to be offended that he's calling NBA players sons of bitches because they're black. No, man, it's because they're taking a knee, and he's a patriotic stance in that. So I don't agree.
Okay. Trump does not agree that statues depicting Confederate leaders or former slave owners deserve to be removed. Zavi, would you agree or disagree that these statues are just a part of U.S. history and heritage?
Yeah, keep them up. Keep them up. Build new ones. Don't take them down. Good, bad, or indifferent. You don't want to forget history. You don't want to forget history. You could tell a fuller picture by having other statues up there that will tell that part of history that's not so. Not so much of a good thing. I'll go ahead and refer to the Bible. The Bible has a lot of bad characters in there. A lot of bad characters did bad things. But it's a part of what happened. Don't take that away. I think, ultimately, societal norms, they do change. And before you know it, a lot of the people that had been in favor of this, that, or the other will now, at a coming age, will be looked at as monsters. And so, does it mean that the good that they did should be thrown out with the bathwater? I don't think so. But yeah, again, things are going to change as far as the norms. And then where you were a hero one day, you will be seeing a villain the next. But just put more up and show a fuller picture.
I think that the way that history is important to be documented. History is extremely important, and that's the reason why it was stripped from us the moment that we got here. So they started our history at zero when we got here as Black people. So because of that complicated beginning, we understand how powerful the documentation of history is, and especially the way that documentation is presented. So if you're presented it in a form of a statue, which is inherently glamorized, no, those should absolutely be removed, because the glamorization of something is going to present a social narrative that is going to allow the acceptance of that figure to be looked at as a hero, not necessarily what it is. So if this person who's a Confederate leader who not only just killed Black people but fought against Americans as we know it today, then that should not be something that we as Americans glamorize.
Back it up.
Did you have a rebuttal?
Well, I hear what he's saying, and he make a good point. However, I think the problem with that is, like I was saying before, the way things change as far as our norms, that means we will have no statues, because everybody is going to be. Even Martin Luther King was, been told to be beaten up on women. So, are we going to go ahead and walk away from Martin Luther King as far as the good things he brought? I hope not. So we will have no statues. But I do see what you're saying. The compromise that because I went back and forth with a couple of my buddies about this. I'm like, why don't we just put more statues up and go ahead and say, hey, this was a dude who abolished slavery. This was a dude who did this, and because we're all guilty of something. So.
Okay. The 1619 Project was drafted aiming to reframe the country's history by placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the United States national narrative. Donald Trump quickly denounced this initiative, saying that it is built on lies, seeks to rewrite American history, and that we need to restore patriotic education and teach that America was founded on freedom, not oppression. Zavi, I'd like to start with you again. What are your thoughts?
The whole thing was debunked. The whole project was debunked. As far as education goes, yeah, I think we should reform education more. I definitely do. Just like I mentioned before, you take a good look inside the Bible. There's pimps, prostitutes, hookers, murderers. It's all right there. I think I'm all about having a full picture so people can think as an individual. I don't want to take something away. and just as much as I don't want to have people be paranoid about things, it's important just to get all the information and make your own decision. Most of us have no idea what the Constitution is, and yes, there's been amendments to make it better and adjust it, but we don't even know that. We don't even know what our rights are. So I think you just want to provide more of the education. It kind of goes back to the whole slavery thing. Slavery had been around forever since America, and then eventually it got abolished. Why it got abolished, that's a whole other discussion, but people think that everybody had a slave back then. So it was 5%. You had Indians who had slaves, you had blacks who had slaves, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. Just like we don't talk about the police brutality that happens. White people get brutalized just as much as we do, but you never see it in mainstream media. You never see it. You never ever see it. And so that just goes back to not showing the full picture.
Andy.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
Thanks.
So as far as the 1619 project,
Right.
Donald Trump quickly denounced the initiative, saying that it was built on lies, seeks to rewrite American history, and that we need to restore patriotic education and teach that America was founded on freedom, not oppression.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I think that patriotic education is one of the biggest tools to oppression against black people in the history of ever. So I think that the tools that were used in order to harm black people were to teach black people the patriotic system is their savior by putting iconography in front of them that represented white people, by stripping them of their native languages and forcing them to speak these things, which I still speak to this current day, by being able to stamp and even constitutionally devalue these people as humans, and then saying, make America great again, at which point are we looking back to say, these are the values that we need to reinstill inside of our homes. So I think that taking that stance should be seen as a direct threat against black people.
And question of the day, does supporting Donald Trump make someone a coon or a racist?
No, it doesn't make them a coon or a racist. It depends on the purpose behind it. I think that everybody can have different reasons. I told people before, when he was running against Hillary Clinton, that I'm not necessarily, I think, you know what? When you say support, I mean, support is expressed in a lot of different ways. So I think casting a vote can be seen as support. I think that a lot of the times for black people, it's very hard for them to mobilize when they don't have a clear opponent. When racism is well disguised, it's hard for black people to mobilize on behalf of their own well-being. So I think that if somebody's like, Donald Trump is going to be openly racist, black people will move because Donald Trump is openly racist, which is exactly how I felt. When he was running against Hillary, I said I did not vote in that election for the primaries. I did not vote because I didn't feel like either vote would help black people, being what the Clintons did with the 3 strikes law. And then as far as Donald Trump, I just didn't feel like either one would be a good option for black people. So, but if I had to vote, I would have voted for Trump, being that I believe that he would be more open about his racism, and it will cause black people and all other marginalized groups to mobilize at a stronger rate than they ever had before, and which is exactly what happened. We had the world's largest women's march. We've had the biggest movement as far as BLM is concerned ever, and so on and so forth. So.
Am I a coon? Is that the question?
Basically, yeah.
Have you ever been
Yeah, every other day. Yeah. I look at it as a badge of honor, and not to be a smart ass or anything. I just, it's like, hey, all right, so I'm Uncle Tom, whatever. Like that's your opinion. What am I gonna do? I agree with what you said. Yeah, people pick things for certain reasons, and just so I know you didn't really ask, I can't talk. Yeah, I do think that there are those who, as we know it, be racist, are Trump supporters, just like I do on the other side as well, just because that's a part of the human condition. And Do I think that maybe the person next to me who's saying 45 might be? He probably could be. Yeah, probably could be. I'm not even concerned about that. As long as I've been to a couple Trump rallies. I've got nothing but love. I've received nothing but love. But I've received a lot of not love from some BLM and Antifa members for saying that I don't agree. I mean, like threats. I'm like, yo, what's up with that? So it all comes down to just respect and love. We definitely don't have to agree, and we're not supposed to. Iron sharpens iron. The most important thing for me is that we're doing this debate right now, and we're still able to do it. I would hate to wake up to a time to where we can't even have these. So, and I don't mean to be dramatic or anything, but this is really a big deal. And some of us, like myself, are kind of going into a good patriotic mode because we're scared that these rights are going to be taken away from us. So I value this.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so Ice Cube has this contract with Black America. Ice Cube worked with the Trump administration to make adjustments in addition to his platinum plan for Black people. What are your thoughts on this, and does that make Ice Cube a sellout? We'll go with Allende first.
I did not see all of the plans and adjustments that he had with that. But Ice Cube, similar to Kanye, similar to a bunch of other people, I do think that there's a strategic plan that needs to be in place, and we need to use each player in order to achieve these things. So I do believe that it's necessary. Like I told people before, like Kanye got in front of a Republican president and was able to talk about the 13th Amendment in front of people that would have never heard of it in that light before, and him and his wife were able to get people who were unjustly locked up out of jail. That means something to me as a Black person. So to whatever method they have, if it brings the progression of Black people, I don't give a damn what vehicle you use to do it. Like, just do it. Like, I don't care. Trump is in office for another 4 years, and if you can milk that man while you there, do it. Like, I personally don't care which vehicle you use, and I don't necessarily look at Ice Cube politically as a beacon of voice for Black people anyway. So I don't necessarily think that him doing that is going to be like, all Black people that follow Ice Cube is gonna be fucked over now, because I don't really look at it that way. But I do think that if he can make a difference and make a change from people who have that power, which I feel like the timing is what makes it hard because of the election time, but if he can make a difference, then I'm for it.
Tommy.
No, I don't think that he's a coon or anything. I think he's being. I think Cube is a businessman, and he's seen the bigger picture. Politically, I'm sure Cube and I disagree, but he's confident and mature enough in where he's at to go into a place where he's probably not too keen on, but he's like, hey, the bigger picture is, I believe that this is the person that will help with the solution. And that's just business 101. You don't do business with people that you love all the time, but you have to do it. And especially myself, coming from an athletic background, I've had a ton of team members who I didn't like at all, did not like, but we played in the same team because we wanted to win a game. And off the field, well, not so much, but once we get on the field, all right, let's go ahead and do it. So I think overall, as far as the Black contract, I think it's good for every group or community to have their own resources in line, as long as it's not kept to just them. There's nothing worse than going into a place to where you don't get service because you don't look like everybody else.
Okay, so moving on to unification, 2 more questions.
Got you.
Why do you think we are so polarized as a people, as black folks? I mean, you guys obviously have different views. Why do you think that is?
You asking?
Yeah, you
Oh.
can say.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, what's going to happen after this?
I think we, not so much just as black people, but just people in general. I mean, we've got to be in the most polarized time period right now in history. Like probably since Civil War, I'm guessing. It's happened. I think it's been. If I can go ahead and borrow your word, it's a progression of things that has started some time ago, and now, and it's. I think it started from. You started to see something about getting an award for participation, and then you you could no longer whoop your kid, and you can no longer do this. And I used to be a teacher at alternative school, and I started to see certain things to where there was just a lack of accountability on certain things, and it was just weird. And so, ultimately, I think what's stirring the hand with that, I think it's more of a spiritual thing. I think it's a I don't mean to be preachy, but that's what I believe. And everybody is just so polarized, and so it's just like it's crazy. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. I think that the biggest thing that we need right now is black people in terms of, I wouldn't say the biggest, but the first step would be to change our points of attraction. Changing our points of attraction is going to condition our sociological climate, which will allow for the resources to be planted and used effectively. I know that sounded weird, so I'm just going to say it really quick in a way that's like easier to understand. We are attracted to things right now that are detrimental to us. So we are attracted to flossing things when we don't necessarily have the base to be able to like help that. So I think that what women like and what men like, if we can change those things, if we can change and be like, man, if you could floss with stock, then I fuck with you. You know what I'm saying? Then that would change a lot for black people. Or we can be like, yo, you know what I'm saying? If we can instill the aspect of loving self and allowing those things to be the case, and that will help a lot, because one of the things that we need for solutions is education, resources, and economics. So if we are provided those resources too soon, or even those economics too soon, what will happen is we wouldn't be able to effectively use it to take us out of these circumstances. So like to the point of reparations, if they were to give us money now, and we have not increased our financial literacy, then the money would not be used properly in order to progress the black community. Or if they were to give us the resources that we need to help with our mental health or anything else like that, it'll be like throwing seeds onto an untilled land or onto untilled soil. It would just land, but it wouldn't be able to take root.
So you mentioned what we need as a people. Zavi, what is your opinion? What do black people need?
I don't think it's a black thing. I think it's a people thing. I agree with pretty much what he just said. If you want generational wealth, then you have to have a generation. You gotta have family, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. As far as I would love to pass a bill that leveraged against the Welfare Act. I would love that, to incentivize for families to stay together. It wouldn't fix everything, but I think if you remedy that, a lot of things will be helped, because there's just certain things that you're not going to know how to. I mean, you can go ahead and get your dream car, Ferrari, Lamborghini, but if you don't know how to have Lamborghini Ferrari problems, how to fix them, you've bought a bigger problem.